you had mentioned 4 words that were strung together that I don't think I've ever heard in my entire life, and they were weapons grade imposter syndrome. And you went on to say that you often think that failure in anything in your life means that you're going to end up back in your words, in the trailer park. So the question I have is, what moments in your life shape that feeling, and how do you channel it into what you do today?
So I don't know that this is like the most healthy approach, but...
Welcome to Something More Human. I'm Sam.
And I'm Elliot.
Post-pandemic, it feels as though our social skills have atrophied.
It feels like the barrier to entry to meeting new people and cultivating community is higher than ever before, but we believe that meaningful relationships are the key to a fulfilling life.
So we're ditching the surface-level conversations to ask and answer questions all about human connection. Join us in creating something more human. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all first and foremost for being here, for spending your time with us. We're really delighted to have you. Thank you also to Claire and Bess and the whole team at the Clayton for hosting us, for sponsoring this podcast episode. John, thank you for flying all the way here to be with us. We're really grateful to be here in person with our first live audience. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm a little shocked that I get to be your first live audience guest, but I'm very honored, and it's a momentous occasion for you guys. I've now listened to all of the podcasts. I actually only joined the Patreon version of it last night because I don't know how to do such things, so I had to have someone help me. But I've listened to everything that you have on Spotify, and I am so excited to be here and talk with you guys. And I have absolutely no idea how I could possibly add to what you're doing, but I'll try to do what I can.
We'll do it. Don't worry about it. We got you.
Thank you. I've had several martinis, so I feel like this could be either really great or I won't remember.
I think that you're aptly prepared. Yeah. For those of you that don't know about the Clayton, it's a members club here in Cherry Creek in Denver. For anybody listening to this as a recording, we'll have a link in the description for everyone to check it out. And a little bit more about kind of me and Elliot, Something More Human, and why we're excited to have John specifically here with us. Something More Human is really more than a podcast, but we're on a mission to inspire authentic relationships and authentic human connection. We moved to Denver in a city where we knew no one. We were really starting over in a lot of ways. And we decided that if we didn't center connection and community, we would simply hate it. And that would be the thing that really made or break our time. And we discovered very quickly that there was an experience among many people, which is post-pandemic. It sort of feels like our social skills have atrophied. We want to get back out there. We want to engage with other people and make friends, but it feels like now the barrier to entry is really high. So we quickly generated some success with the show. That message resonated with a lot of folks, and we're celebrating our first birthday in the top 1.5% of podcasts globally.
I think that that's not really so much a testament to us, but I think it really is what Sam is talking about. People are resonating with just the message, right? We're trying to be as open and honest as we can with each other and with our guests, and I think that people are starved for or looking for true, meaningful connection. And I think that's harder to do as you get older, for sure. Definitely harder to do when you move to a new place. So I think that's what it's about. The 1.5% is really just about the people that are listening, that are looking for, that connection that maybe they're lacking. So that's why we're here. That's why we're doing what we're doing, and we're having a good time doing it. And we're really happy to have you here.
Absolutely. So we're really seeking to ask and answer questions about the human experience. How do we make friends as adults? How do we cultivate community as entrepreneurs? How do we find these people that we vibe with, that are our people out in the world, in person? And how do we not feel awkward doing it? And we're all going to make mistakes, and that's okay. We've quickly learned that it starts with one person. So the way that we met John is through one singular person. In January of this year, 2024, we attended our first ever podcast conference, and we met someone that works for a podcast platform. She spoke extremely highly of a conference called Podcast Movement. It's the largest podcasting conference in the world. And she said, you guys have to go. If you've never been, you have to go. And we were like, I don't know if we can, actually. So we were able to get sponsored tickets in August to attend this conference. And I just glanced across the room, saw someone taking a sip of their drink, and make a face. It was a really strong drink. And I said, was that a strong drink? Is it good? And she just came over with her husband, and that turned out to be the producers of John's new podcast. We sat down for lunch and just really had a nice time together. We didn't talk about business. We just talked about they got married the day before. How are they doing? Why did you come to a conference the day after your wedding? Are you alive? How are you awake? And they told us about John and how inspired they are about everything that he's doing, about his life story. And so it took one person to bring us here to this room and with John. So we're grateful that you're here. And it's kind of a reminder that the world is really big. There's lots of fish in the sea. But if you just say hey to one person, it can really unlock a lot of doors.
It's pretty crazy just to think about that, to think we're here in this moment, and the only reason that's possible is because of Gabby and Danny. And if we hadn't gone up to them, if they hadn't been so warm and they hadn't invited us to lunch, because we didn't invite them, they invited us to lunch and we said yes. And we were actually thinking about saying no because we were busy, and we said yes.
No, we were going to say no because we brought our lunch.
I thought, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe we brought our lunch. But yeah, just the butterfly effect of things and relationships is pretty beautiful to see this one flourish, to become what it is now, to be here in this room with a bunch of people some people we know and a lot that we don't know. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. Sam and I, some of the messaging we use on the podcast and on our social media is that we talk a lot about ditching the surface level conversation to get to the heart of human connection. And our culture seems to focus more on what we do than more about who we are. And so we do know what you do. So we want to know, who are you?
And John, this is your time to give us your 2 to 3 minute pitch.
I'm John. Thank you, Mom. So my name is John Block. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Park West Gallery. We are, we think, the largest dealer of art in the world. So we have galleries in New York and Las Vegas and Honolulu and Detroit. And we also have 109 galleries and auction operations on cruise ships, luxury cruise ships around the world. I know everyone always thinks, is that a thing? It's a thing, believe it or not. And so we think that we're the largest dealer of art in the world, something like 500,000 pieces every year. And we are, 3 million customers or something like that. A bunch of them are here. And so that's what I do. And then who I am, like everybody else, I'm still working that out. But I come from the great seafaring state of Iowa. And I came up really poor. The way I describe it when I talk about this with our teams is I was ketchup soup poor, meaning we didn't have money for food. We didn't have money to make real, tomato soup. So we would make soup with ketchup. And sometimes we didn't even have that. And so I came up from a situation where really abject poverty. And I didn't have a backup. I didn't have someone to support me or help me or pay for my school or any of those things. And so I just had to work it out, right? And I know that this happens all over the world, but in America, we'd say it's a very American story with pulling yourself up by bootstraps and that kind of thing. But I managed to do school. I managed to, find my niche or something that really appealed to me and hit all the right things, right? Because sometimes your right brain and left brain, it's really hard to find something that, does all of that for you. But I got to be in the business of art, which is an unusual thing because you get to kind of do the whole gambit. There's a ton of creative involved. And also, obviously, I work for, I think, the most successful model there is for making money out of art. And so anyway, that's, I guess, who I am and what I do and how did I do.
Excellent.
Was that 2 to 4 minutes?
Yeah, that was perfect. And now we're going to skip all that surface level stuff and get straight into it.
Okay.
I hope you're ready.
So when we first spoke to you over Zoom...
he's intimidating because he writes out the questions. I just want you to know that. I don't know if you've listened to the podcast, but when he looks down at that card, it scares the hell out of me. All right. Go ahead.
Well, the first thing that stuck out is you were very forthcoming about your story right away over Zoom. It's very personal, which is exactly the type of people that we're looking for. We like to think that we're sort of those people, very open and willing to talk about anything and everything. And you had mentioned four words that were strung together that I don't think I've ever heard in my entire life. and they were weapons grade imposter syndrome. And you went on to say that you often think that failure in anything in your life means that you're going to end up back in your words, in the trailer park. So the question I have is, what moments in your life shape that feeling, and how do you channel it into what you do today?
So I don't know that this is like the most healthy approach, but like no, I really do. I've always thought that like even a minor setback at work in my head and my messed up brain for this kind of thing, I equate it to it just wipes clean the entire slate and sets me back to where I began, like in that life. And so the education, the experience, the success, and all of that stuff can be wiped out by just one bad move, right? And of course, like logically, I know that that isn't the case, and that like the people who love me will still love me even if I screw one thing up. But in my head, I've always operated from that position of fear. And so my entire life, I've been surrounded by people, colleagues and friends and family members saying, "You're not going to get fired, stupid. Like, you're doing a great thing. You're just, anybody can make a mistake, or anybody can fall short of their goal." But I really always operated from that position. I don't know if there was a moment that made me feel like that. The thing about poverty that's really awful is that it is almost like addiction. Like, it's really hard to get out of, and you subconsciously, people who are raised in poverty, I find anyway, we tend to make decisions to keep ourselves just like one step away from there. And so I have so many people that I know that like would come from poverty and end up making, hundreds of thousands a year and still live with $12 in their checking account, right? And so I was fortunate, right? I met someone, I fell in love, and she's a total miser. So she was able to like beat that out of me, right? So like I didn't, and also with age, you grow out of that and you start to realize things like, it's weird, I'm making a terrible decision and I know I'm making a terrible decision. Why would I do that? But luckily I ended up in a relationship with somebody who kind of could call that out. And she hadn't lived in poverty. And so she would like say, "This is nuts. Why would you do that? Why would you take such a risk when you don't need to?" But it is almost like addiction. Like it really tries to pull you back in. It's a very ugly thing, like disease or addiction or something like that. And so I don't know that it was a moment so much as it is like hardwired in those of us who have been through that and have lived that life. You do feel the gravitational pull towards like those sorts of things.
Is that gravitational pull still as strong as it was 5 years ago or 10
No.
years ago? Or
No, and obviously so we're just talking about economics here, but the more you make, the easier it gets to go, okay, well, I can make a mistake in that area and it doesn't kill me, right? But beyond that, the older that you get and the more you kind of realize things about yourself, you in all aspects of life, in the way that you talk with people, in the way that you build relationships, in the way that you treat the people that you love and the people that you can't stand, all of those things, you modify your behavior based on experiences and you learn your lessons and that kind of thing. So I don't feel that pull at all anymore, right? Like there's this guy who's a financial guru, Dave Ramsey. I'm sure you guys have heard of Dave Ramsey, but his whole deal is you never owe anyone any money ever for any reason. You don't borrow money for a house. You don't borrow money for a car. You borrow money for absolutely nothing. I'm not all the way Dave Ramsey-ized, but I'm much closer to that than I am, honestly, when the first year that I made like a significant income, if my paycheck was $5,000, I would have had $4,500 of it spent before I got the check, right? And that's the downside of poverty, is that you live from a position, you're so comfortable in lack, and if you sit in shit long enough, it stops stinking, right? So you don't realize. Sorry, that's an Iowa-ism for those of you in the back over there. I think it's actually a quote about cow shit, but anyway. So the thing is, I don't feel that pull anymore. In fact, now I repel that pull. So like now I could drive any car I want, but I drive a fairly conservative car because I'm kind of like pushing back against that whole thing. So
I think we've heard time and time again across different people in different careers that there's not a number in your bank account that solves all your problems, right? It doesn't, your imposter syndrome and that fear does not go away because you've reached X number of figures. So I'm curious, as you deal day in and day out or have dealt with imposter syndrome and fear, is there someone or something that keeps you grounded and anchored that, hey, if you just make this one mistake, you're not going to be back in that trailer park? Or if you do this thing, you're still lovable and you're still likable and funny.
Thank you. That's very nice. Well, now you're that person. No, for me, there's lots of, well, not lots of people, but like the community of people that I've built around me that I trust, right? So I have an inner circle of people like anyone else. I mean, I hope everybody gets to have an inner circle of people. And those people are the ones who, cause me to like think through things and try to keep things in perspective. But it's I think imposter syndrome is a real thing. I'd never even heard those words. I actually was listening to a podcast when I first heard about imposter syndrome, and it really was like convicting. It's like, oh, that's what's wrong with me, right? But it's not just about like the money or about going back to like the trailer park existence or any of that. It's also about like always feeling like I need to apologize for where I am and how I got here and everything that is given to me. I remember when they made me COO, I was worried to publish it because I thought about what people would think who didn't think I deserved it, right? And I think now, like, and it's not that long ago. This was in 2024. They promoted me, and I earned the damn job, right? Like I worked for a long time, and I work hard, and I did the things I need to do. But in my head, like I was like, I shouldn't tout it. Like they wanted to do, when you get promoted in the C-suite, all these business magazines like want to do articles and like it's a thing, right? And you buy advertising and they put you in every magazine. And I didn't do any of them because it just felt to me like, I don't know, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Does that make sense to anybody? Okay, like 4 of you get me and the rest of you were raised in wealth. But anyway, the thing is like you have this feeling of I don't deserve it, I shouldn't have it, you don't mention it. Like I just think about this woman that was like one of the formational people like who kind of showed me there was a different life out there. She was raised in again terrible poverty, and then she owned a business, and it was a roller rink, by the way. It wasn't like we're not talking about she was a founder at Apple. She owned a roller rink, but she had a great business and made great money. And I remember that she always had a new car, and she always had like she lived in a beautiful neighborhood. None of the things that like me, but she used to carry a wadded up $100 bill in her shoe, and I'm talking about into her 70s, because she remembered what it was like when she would go out with her friends and she didn't have the money to get home. So even though like she was in a position of complete abundance, she carried a wadded up $100 bill in her shoe just in case all the time. So I just feel like that. I feel like I should keep a $100 bill in my shoe just in case, which is completely ridiculous. But I understand what she was thinking, So it's not just about the trailer park. It's about like not allowing myself to feel the victories, to feel the accomplishments, because I think I'm always thinking about like that other life, and that's what I deserve, and anything else must be a fluke, and these people must be really stupid to put me in charge, that kind of thing.
Sam always says, Elliot, you focus too much on like where things like come from or like how things start. But I am going to ask that kind of question. Where do you think that comes from? This. What you're explaining, where does that feeling or that emotion come from, where you feel like maybe you don't deserve it or you're afraid to let people know that you got a promotion? Where does that feeling derive from?
I don't know. Like I wasn't not loved or something. Like that's what I always think of. Like, is it that somebody didn't love me or something? I don't know. I didn't feel like that. Maybe I was oblivious. I should also say I didn't know I was poor. Like my mother did a great job of like covering it. Like I didn't know that we were completely in the shits. I had no idea, right? I probably would have been depressed or like one of these emo kids or ended up wearing a lot of makeup. I don't know. But I didn't end up doing any of those things because I didn't really know that I was a candidate to be emo. Like I didn't know that was a thing. Anyway, so I thought you had to earn that, right? Like something had to be really wrong. I was just poor. Anyway, I was saying the other day to someone asked me the other day, what's the biggest difference between the life you have now? And I said, I was poor, so I never got white privilege. Now that I have it, it's pretty good. I want you to know. Like, I am really living my best life in this white privilege. If you can get it, folks, get in there. But anyway, so I know that's awful, but just to be very clear,
Honesty
I'm like
matters.
10 years into white privilege, and it's fantastic. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know that there was like a single thing that gave that to me, but I shared with you guys. I haven't done any like therapy. I just signed up. Okay, I'll just tell you. My first session is tomorrow here in Denver. So yeah, thank you. I've only done what do we call it? Couples therapy. Yeah.
We're big fans.
Yeah, I said it a weird way earlier when we had lunch, so I wanted to make sure I didn't say it in some way that would be offensive. And on our podcast, I called it a shrink. And then Gabby said, some people might be offended by that. And I said, they're not going to like me, that's for sure. But so I haven't done a lot of that. And one of the things I kind of want to know is that. So I want to like dive into why it is that I feel that way, because I don't know, like I work hard. I don't feel like anyone gave me a gift of anything. I feel like I worked really hard. Luck is part of it, right? You're in the right place at the right time, but you also have to work. You have to go for those things. You have to put yourself in that place a lot of time. So I don't think it's all me, but I don't think it's, not all me. And so I don't know. So maybe with the person I'm going to see tomorrow, maybe they can tell me what it is that's broken. Oh no, he's reading from the card again. You see that, folks?
It's my turn.
No.
We've only met you twice. We've talked to you for quite at length, but I think the more that we're doing this, the clearer the mission for Sam and I becomes, which is, finding where you're valued and going all in on those relationships. So that being said, transitioning from, a life rooted in, if you want to say, survival to one involving fine art, can you tell us about how your personal relationships through the years have influenced your decision to go down the path that you're on? And do those relationships still remind you that you're on the right path?
I knew that I was different. I have siblings, and they slid right into the same lifestyle. And I never did. I never fit in with them. I just never had that. All of my closest relationships from the time I was a little kid, really through today, it's not that I have a bad relationship with my family or something. Like we're fine. Like everything's okay. But I really always wanted out, and I wanted a different way. And I don't really know if there's like a single reason for that. I certainly had some people that were not part of my family as a kid that were really influential for me. So, but I kind of always went that way. And in terms of like kind of away from that lifestyle, and I knew I wanted something different. In terms of fine art, I never thought that there would be a gig where you could get involved in the arts and really be immersed in it all the time, but still earn a living. And I shared with you guys earlier, I think if I have any problem with the life that I've crafted for myself, it's that I've been like a mercenary, right? Like because of coming from poverty, I always have thought about I have to earn, and I have to be able to take care of myself. And if I want to be married to somebody, I have to be able to take care of her. And the truth is, she's fine without me. She was fine without me before. She will be fine without me when eventually she dumps me. There it is, imposter syndrome or something. I don't know. But I always felt that in me, like that I had to have that as kind of my backup. So I guess in terms of a path, I don't think anybody sets out going, you know what, I'm going to become like the top person at this like huge art company. But my relationships drove me there. So the one thing consistent, I'm a people collector. So like from every job I've ever had, every charity I ever volunteered at, I really have always like gathered up the people, and I try to figure out what benefit I can be in their lives. Well, you saw it today. Like we're having a casual lunch, and I'm trying to talk to them about how sales and marketing for their podcast. How can I make you money? And that's just how I'm wired, right? Because I go, I like you guys, and I listen to your whole show. I like what your show's about. I like what you guys are trying to do for the world. So then I want to find a way for you to make money, because I don't know that I can contribute in a meaningful way to the conversation that you're trying to put out there. The way I think I can contribute is to fund it, right? Like to help you get it funded. And it's the same with Broadway. I'm really into Broadway. Like I really have always loved it. And feel free to judge me for those of you in the room who are, alpha males. But I've always loved it. Like I loved it when I used to watch it on television. I loved it when I went to a school play or a community, what do they call it? Community theater. And then when I got to see Broadway for the first time and I sat in like the second row and you see these people who have worked their entire lives to be standing in the very spot that they are when you're watching them, and their entire soul is left out on the boards of that stage. Of course I'm into that. Well, turns out can't sing for shit. So I wanted to be involved in that. I can't be involved in that as a singer or a dancer. You were a dancer, so you are a dancer.
And I cannot sing, so
you can't sing.
I
Okay.
empathize.
I can't. I have a a voice for the shower and a face for radio. Anyway, I couldn't do that, so I got involved in what do they call it? Helping to finance Broadway shows. Saying producer would be really reductive to people who are actual producers who put up tens of millions of dollars. But I've invested in a bunch of Broadway shows, not because I want to make money out of them, but because I want to be part of it, right? And again, everywhere I've been, I try to, not intentionally, but I just have collected people. And so I believe I wouldn't have the job that I have now, but for a group of people who are standing behind me saying, dummy, you should ask them to make you vice president. Hey, dummy, you should ask them to make you COO. Like, you've earned it. Why are you settling for what you have? You need to do this. And those were not just people from inside our organization, but just people I've collected along the way. And I'm believe it or not, I'm a people collector, but I'm terrible at communication. So the people I collect have to be very patient. Some of them are in the back of the room.
And made a trek to be here. So that's incredible. I think there's an interesting kind of conversation around different phases of life and the relationships that we have that we may grow into and grow out of. So we actually had a listener reach out recently, and she was asking us about navigating old friendships. She said that she's had this group of friends for 15 years, but over the last couple of years, they've really grown in different ways, and now their values no longer align. She asked us about navigating, finding new friends that better align with her values, without falling easily back into the comfort of these 15-year-old friends who she knows, but now there's sort of some friction. So I'm curious, I think this experience is common because we grow and change all the time. But as you change financial environments, physical environments, if you moved throughout your life, have you had that experience of outgrowing relationships? And what was that like?
Yeah, it's so funny. You think about people as archetypes. I don't know if you guys do this, but like you especially, I'm old comparatively, and you start to see patterns in people, right? And so in my life, I've met a few people that kind of fit your particular mold. I'm not saying that you're exactly like them, but there's something about it. And those people, there was this girl in my life many years ago called Kate. And Kate and you have something in common, which is it just feels like you can peel through the bullshit and you find a piercing question to my heart. So right now in my life, I'm going through this exact thing. And you alluded to this at lunch, and I was thinking if she asked me that on stage, I'm just going to have to fess up and talk about it. So I was an art auctioneer for a long time, and I traveled the world as an art auctioneer. And, Gabby, my producer, said that I have to say the name of our podcast is Off the Block, the Off the Block podcast. There it is. Gabby, I love you. Anyway, so back to the story. I have just recently become the COO of this company, and I have had a bit of trouble. And the trouble that I've had is I started out as a salesperson for this company, a junior salesperson, and then a senior salesperson, and then a manager of salespeople, and then a director, and then a vice president, and an executive vice president, and then finally now COO. So I've worked here a long time. So it has become now, frankly, with each promotion, unfortunately, I have to shed some friends from my circle. And it's awful. It is the worst thing possible. because it feels a lot like forgetting where you came from, and that's kind of against everything that's in me. But the other side of it is that sometimes for you to come up higher and for you to take the next level in your life, unfortunately, those people can't come with you. And sometimes it's because of jealousy, and sometimes it's because of just plain mean-spiritedness, like people who are your friend aren't rooting for you really. And sometimes it's because there's like great people who aren't people who would make a good decision for our business. And it's one thing if you're a salesperson and they're your buddy. It's a whole different thing if you're running the company and they're your buddy and they're not a person who's going to make good decisions for the business or be good to the business. So it's sometimes that, but more often than not, I've found that each time you have to do this sort of culling of the herd, which is such an awful, like, it's an awful thing to say, it's an awful thing to have to do. It's usually about, there's only, at least in my view, there are people who make deposits into you that's who they are, and there are people who make withdrawals, right? And I think that every time you level up in life, you have to really look at those people who are just constantly trying to take and make withdrawals from you. And you have to get rid of those people, unfortunately, and surround yourself with people who are going to try to fill that for you, people who are going to try to make deposits and make you feel better and be a better person and be the best version of yourself. So like when I was like in my 20s, right? At some point you have to shed the people you used to go to the nightclub with, right? And at some point you have to shed the people that you used to get blind drunk with. And at some people you have to shed at some point you have to shed the people that you used to chase skirts with. And at some point you have to shed the people that well, frankly, they're still living that party lifestyle, even though they're 20 years too old to be living that party lifestyle or whatever it is. And at some point, you have to shed the people who are treating their lives as a job-to-job deal and focus on the people who are going to pull you up with them, right? If you surround yourself with, I have a friend, Jason Betteridge, who says, you can't soar like an eagle if you're surrounded by turkeys. And sometimes you really have to look at that. Are they people who are going to build you up and take you where you want to go? Or are they people who are going to hold you down and pull you back from where you want to go? It's awful. It really is a terrible thing. I'm going through it. Like literally this week, I've been making some decisions about whether or not I'm going to continue to engage with certain people. I have this friend, and then I'll shut up because I realized the podcast can't really be 4 hours. That was just a joke when I said that earlier. I have this friend who my entire life, every single interaction with him has been him asking for something and me doing it. And for 15 years, my wife, before she was my wife, but even now, she keeps saying to me, like, what is wrong with you? Anyone else who screws you over once, you're done with them. But this guy, you let him screw you over again and again and again, and you keep taking his calls and you keep helping him every time, even though every time it's some fool's errand that he sends you on. And again, I just made a decision recently that I'm just not going to take the calls. I'm not going to respond to the texts. I had to break up with him, which is just an awful thing to do. But anyway, so you have to do it. Unfortunately, I think everyone has to do it. I shared with you at lunch, I read autobiographies very often of people more successful than me because I want to mimic, right? I want to find the things they did well and steal them. And it's true of every single one of them. So I think it's true of anybody.
I'm thinking about my friends, male friends that are in the same age range. It seems like it's a very difficult conversation to have, and we'd rather sort of just let those relationships sort of fade away instead of having the conversation. So when you're talking about ending these relationships, are you actually talking about either sitting down or writing a letter or texting them? Like, are you talking about an actual conversation where you're saying, this is what it is and, have a good life?
Yeah, I think that's what you should do all the time. And I do a little mix of the two. If someone gets me, if I get annoyed enough and I feel taken advantage of enough, then I'll say, we're done, right? You don't need to call me. We're all set. But, the fade away is a lovely way. Actually, in dating, it's a lovely way to end a relationship as well, to be clear. But it doesn't always work because, as it turns out, if they don't get the memo, they keep showing up. But
John, we call that ghosting. Just
is that what it is?
Yeah.
No. we don't, but maybe you do. Uh, anyone in this room whose age starts with a 4 or a greater number, I'm at lunch with him today, and I had to like really pay close attention because the vocabulary is different, right? Like I and he talks so fast. I don't know what the hell they're saying, but it's you're a fast talker, but the it's just a little different vocab, right? So ghosting, I'll adopt that.
You're with it. I said, do you know Delulu is the Salulu? And you said yes.
Yeah, that's because I have an unhealthy addiction mine is Instagram, but same, you get it's from TikTok, right?
Yeah, you're online. I'm going to take what Elliot said and maybe go one step further.
Oh, no.
You're dealing with it right now. What advice might you have for someone listening or here that's also going through it? You need to kind of shed some layers, and unfortunately, they're people.
Yeah. And the problem is they're people with hopes and dreams, and so often people like that are pinning their hopes and dreams to you're a part of that, right? Like they need you to do whatever it is they want to do. So I'm going to give advice and then just be really honest and say everyone who knows me really well will be like, you are so full of crap right now. We tell you this all the time. But the truth is, it's like you got to rip the Band-Aid off. And this friend that I have, and again, I love him. Like the thought of him wandering through this world without me, I don't know how he will make it, but he will. But we all have that friend, right? Someone who is just completely lost in the world. And, it seems like, how do they even tie their shoes in the morning without somebody, to help them? We all have that person. But I have let that linger. I'm not joking, 25 years. There has been no benefit for me in that relationship in 25 years, and only benefit for him and for whatever person he's dating or company he's with or whatever. I mean, at one point I moved all of our travel to his company. Like I've done everything I can for this person. And this is a guy who will light the house on fire with himself inside 100% of the time. Eventually, you got to take him out behind the woodshed, right? And I would just say that for people, you really know in your heart. Like I've known for the 15 years that Yuki's been yelling at me, like, what the hell are you doing with this guy? I've known this was a terrible idea. I'm not stupid. I have a weak spot for this person. And there's others. You just have to rip the Band-Aid off. And again, that's wonderful advice to give and hard advice to follow. At least it is for me. So.
Well, what's interesting is I can't remember the podcast that we were on, but it was maybe pretty early on, like maybe 6 months ago, 9 months ago. And she was saying the opposite. She was like, maybe there are sometimes there are people in your life that you're meant to give to, like relentlessly. Because I was telling her about one of my friends that was sort of the same way. I felt like it was a lot of take and no give, or give and no take. And she was like, I think that, some of those people are placed in our lives for that reason, like that you're meant to be that servant that just, they don't really have anything to offer you, but you're there to offer them whatever it is that they need. I feel like maybe that's pretty extreme, but I've wrestled with that a lot. I've thought about that a lot lately and wrestled with that because I feel like everything you're saying is, for your sanity, that's probably what you should do, right? Especially if you have a lot of those relationships in your life. But something about what she said resonates with me, and I'm wondering what you think about that.
I think something I'm hearing you say, John, is like, at the end of the day, you kind of know. Your heart and your gut or whatever kind of subconscious thing that speaks to you is going to let you know and be that constant voice. And if that voice is telling you to stay on for some reason that feels purposeful and meaningful and deeper than perhaps you can consciously understand, I think that's where we're on this side of the line. And we say, okay, I can be servant-minded with this person and I can show up for them in ways that they don't show up for me. And there's a finite point where you realize it's been a decade, it's been 2 decades, and my soul is no longer satisfied or happy or even filled in any way when you call me.
For me, the thing that made it possible for me to be like, okay, now I'm done, was deception. When the person crossed the line from, there's plenty of people in my life who I don't necessarily get anything out of the relationship, but I don't feel robbed by anything, right? Right? Like, I think we all have those people too. You don't have to get something out of every relationship. I suppose I don't know. There's self-help books that say it has to be like an equal give and take. I don't know that that's the truth. I don't know that many people that I have an equal give and take with. But I think when it comes to deception, like any kind of lying or trickery or any of that kind of stuff, I think that's where it's like, okay, cash me out. I'm done. And so that's what gave me the freedom to finally say, for this particular person. And again, there's more than just this one person, and I love this person, and I really do wish them well. And I'm not saying that because that's the thing you say if you're not a horrible person. I obviously been carrying this prick for 25 years. I love him, obviously, but it just is, at some point you have to go, this is toxic. It's bad for me, right? And frankly, in that one case, it's also embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing when your friends and family and your inner circle see you completely disappointed and just manipulated over and over. So anyway, I think that maybe that's the litmus test. If it gets to a place where it's dishonest, where it's manipulative, then you can go, okay, that's not about being a servant anymore. That's about being abused, right? And then I think that's when you get off that track.
So things I'm hearing you say overall, John, are fear can be sneaky. Pay attention to it, listen to it, address it when it speaks to you. Crafting your inner circle is really important and is in a lot of ways the key to success in whatever success means to you. Rip the Band-Aid off even when it hurts. And before we open it up to Q&A for our live audience, Elliot and I are going to use Q&A as a guise to ask you questions out of left field.
For those of you that don't know,
I'm out of martini.
Someone get this man a martini. Dirty? You like him dirty, right? Yeah. Gotcha. For those of you that don't really...
dirty talking me right now? Is that what's going on here? I don't know what Glen Machine is, but I feel uncomfortable. Anyway.
For those of you that don't know, Sam and I, yes, we are married 6 years as of last week. Definitely feels like a feat. In a good way.
Thank you.
We've worked on it. We've worked on it for sure. But
we've heard.
But we're also very opposite in almost every single way. So that being said, this is sort of a new segment that we want to introduce into the show, which is how can people, I think the power of the podcast is you and I and our willingness to be forthcoming and vulnerable and all those things. But also to show how different we are by asking virtually very different questions. Mine's always super philosophical and deep. This is a pretty heavy conversation that we've had today. I think I'm wondering if people here were thinking it was going to be more laughs or more
I can talk about
financial advice, and we could definitely do that. But this has been a pretty heavy conversation. But I feel like most of our podcasts are, and I enjoy that. So we're just going to go all in. But this is a question I have for you, and it is: if you could experience a single moment from your past as though it were the first time, what would it be? And would you choose to live it exactly as it happened, or would you risk altering it with wisdom you've gained since then? I can read it again, slower. I'm working on it.
Do me a favor, sound out the words as we're going, won't you?
No pressure.
So a single moment that I could live again, and would I live it the same way, or would I adjust
that you
it?
could live again as if it were the first time.
But you said you wanted to tell a story too, right? Of that
if you have a story of a moment to share with us, and then of that moment, would you live it exactly the same, become the person that you are today, or risk the space-time continuum changes of altering that moment with the wisdom you have?
I saw the Marvel films, yeah. A moment that I would like to live again, and that I would, oh, it's sappy. It's pretty sappy.
We want
That's
it.
what we want, yeah.
So I did a lot of dating. I lived on cruise ships. It's like summer camp for drinking adults, okay? And so people are on there for 4 months. So you date them and then they go away. There's no breaking up. They just move on. It's a lovely way to meet people. But I met a girl and fell in love. And I remember I went to an all-crew skate. There's ice rinks on some of the ships. And I went to an all-crew skate, and she was one of the ice skaters on board. And I fell bum over noggin, head over heels in love at the ice skating thing. And Art Auctioneer is a prestigious job on board cruise ships, for those of you who haven't been. And I know that sounds so stupid, but it is. And like in the hierarchy of a cruise ship, right? It's a small community. In the hierarchy, that's a good gig on a cruise ship. And I just remember that. So I was the benefactor of people who wanted to date me because I had a better cabin and I had room service and I had a window and like all of that stuff, right? I'm just being honest. That was my stock in trade. So then I met this girl and she was new to cruise ships, this ice skater girl. And she said, "So what do you do on board?" And I said, "Well, I'm the art auctioneer." And she said, "So is that like a good job?" And I was like, "I'm in love." And so we met that night and she totally rejected me at the all crew skate. And I know this sounds like I was 12, but I was 29. But anyway, so she rejected me at the skating rink. And then we carry these phones on board that are just like, they're basically radios for the ship. And like 15 minutes after, she called my phone and I hadn't given her my number, so she had to research it. So then I knew I was in. And I went, so she invited me to come to the staff and officers bar. And that was like the night we fell in love. And the relationship doesn't get less complex after that, right? Like everything gets complex after that. And I was moved, 4 months came. I was moved to another ship. She was moved to another ship. We were apart for a long time. But for that one night, it was completely uncomplicated. I was completely into her. She was completely into me. We were sitting in a bar. There was like 100 people there. All the crew went there after the cruise skate. And so, but it was like we were the only two people in the room. I would live that night. It was so good. And life is not easy like that ever, but it was just so perfect. And I would live that over and over. I don't know if I would do anything different, except not long after that, I took an assignment that was 3,000 miles away from her. And I wish I wouldn't have done that. I wish I would have said to the company, I could have put my foot down and said, like, this is important to me, like, you know, and I didn't do that because I, at the time, was thinking career-minded. I wasn't thinking about, like, you don't chase a girl. Like, you stay focused. But I wish I would have stayed with her the entire time. But in any case, we've been together now for a long time, so I suppose it worked out. But that would be the thing that I would probably do again. Yeah.
Okay, my question fasts us forward to present day. When was the last time you failed, and what did it teach you?
I fail all the time. I mean, I'm very fortunate. Like, our philosophy in our business is fail miserably, fail fast, though. So we'll try just about anything if we think that it could possibly be good. So professionally, like, failure is not a thing that's like a curse word in our company. Like, we don't view it in that way. The CEO, the founder, he has always been that way. So if we fail, we want to leave, like, you know, the Kool-Aid man. Are you old enough to remember the Kool-Aid man?
Yeah, I know about him. So
the Kool-Aid man would like run through the wall and leave the Kool-Aid man shaped hole in the wall. You guys with me?
I've seen those. I've seen the commercial.
So I'm shaped a little bit less like the Kool-Aid man than I used to be, but our whole philosophy is like, we're going to leave that shape in the wall. We're going to like run at the wall at full speed, and if we fail, we fail. So I fail all the time. So when's the last time I failed? Man, let me think about a good one, because like there's so many, because nobody's perfect, and I'm
absolutely. This is the point of the segment, is like, we're humans. We fail all the time, and we fail each other sometimes.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it more often.
Yeah. So here's a personal one that's just like really, really recent. So I'm not like, again, like, I don't, as far as I know, have any sort of intellectual disability. But my wife asked me last week if her brown cowboy boots went really well with her outfit, and I didn't say yes. And I want you to know that when I was sitting on the airplane today coming here, and I was looking out the window, I was thinking, what is wrong with you? Why would you not just say yes? It would make her feel good, and what the hell do I care what her brown boots look like? Like, I don't know what is wrong with me that I would have an actual opinion. And then when she was upset by my opinion, I said, that was a trap. You know, and I was sitting on the plane today thinking, what kind of moron would actually tell another person something about their appearance? Clearly, all she needed was yep, you look great. That's all she needed. I'm an idiot. But anyway, so personally, and then professionally, we did an enormous deal recently, like a lot of millions and millions of dollars. And one little thing about the deal I forgot to include in the contract. And so we were in this moment. We had paid the money. We had not received anything that we purchased, but we had paid out millions of dollars to a company in a foreign country. And we're sitting, waiting, hoping, because one line of the contract that I didn't think of was escrow. I didn't think of, we'll put the money in escrow, we'll wait for the money to ship. Every deal I've ever done, and I'm a deal junkie. This is a big part of my job, is I do deals all the time. Like, I'm so into it. I'm talking about, like, I've probably written, in 5 years of being kind of in charge of things, I bet I've written 500 contracts, 600 contracts. I just don't miss on this, and I missed it, and the attorney missed it, because I have a real attorney check things. And we both missed it. No escrow. I had no choice but to wire millions of dollars and hope. And this was like a week ago. So I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was just, because it was first of all, it's not my money. If it was my money and I made my own mistake and it cost me my money, that's a different thing. But it's someone else's money, right? And it was a substantial sum. Like, it wasn't a $50,000 deal. Like, it was millions. And I simply had to wait for the company to put it in a box and ship it to me, and then for it to clear customs, then for it to arrive at our warehouse and be inventoried. And I haven't had this since I was like a kid. When I got the message that it was there and it was okay, I started bawling like a little kid, like someone had taken my toys as a kid, because I was so certain that we were going to get screwed. Foreign company, foreign entity. How do you sue them? What can you do? Like, the remedies we have in America, that doesn't translate to every country. By the way, it was Switzerland. So it's like, they're known for protecting people who are lawless. So I was like, we are screwed and it's all my fault. Anyway, so it was luckily it has a happy ending to the story, but like one line, it was a, 8-10 page contract. One single line got deleted somehow and I didn't catch it. And it could have been millions lost. But anyway, fortunately, they're good people who did a good thing, and now I'm so sorry that that I doubted them. But in any case, you make mistakes all the time, and whether it's personal or professional, the only thing you can do is, like, put that on the list of, let's not do that again. Like, I'm never going to tell anyone that their boots do not look good. And I am certainly never going to ever again have a contract where I send the money first and just sit like this for 2 weeks waiting for it to show up. So anyway, yeah.
Can I learn that when you ask me if your boots look good? Do the women in the audience, do I just say yes always?
Yes.
No matter what? She's saying no.
I want to actually know. Like, you have good
No,
sense
you
of...
don't.
But you have...
That's a lie.
No, here's the thing, John. I had a matching skirt before, and I was like, what do you think about this? And Elliot was like...
I wasn't talking about the skirt. I like the skirt. I wasn't talking about
but it was like the together, the vibe that we're going for. I ended up changing. I like this outfit better. I sometimes need that honest eye, but that's our specific relationship.
Oh, yeah. You guys are a special snowflake. The thing is, you guys have been married 6 years. You know what's harder than the first 6? The
next
last
6.
one. Anyway, so just agree with whatever she says. That's what you should do. She's
Fair
smart
enough.
and pretty, and she's very good at her job and all of that. So just do whatever she tells you to. That's my advice. There you go.
I think that's an excellent place to open it up for Q&A. A happy note, a good takeaway for all of us. John, thank you so much for your candor. Seriously, it wouldn't be easy to have a conversation with someone that wasn't willing to just go deep, because that's what we want to do. So we really appreciate you taking the time, physically coming and being open. Again, thank you to the Clayton. We really appreciate all of you who are here in the room with us. Again, for everyone listening to the recording, we'll let you know more about the Clayton in the comments in the description.
Come stay here. I'm staying here, and it's unbelievable. Because of my work, I've stayed in like the best hotels in the world. We were talking about that today.
Yeah.
And it is an unbelievable off-the-charts hotel. So come and stay at the Clayton in Denver. And this neighborhood, it's called Cherry Creek.
We're in Cherry Creek.
It's unbelievable. I didn't know about Cherry Creek before. Don't judge me over there, Clayton people. Anyway, this is an unbelievable hotel with incredible service. And yeah, I will stay here every single time I visit Denver for the rest of my life. So,
Just as John's producer, Gabby, prompted him to talk about Off the Block, he has a show that's coming up for everyone to listen to soon. For Something More Human, you can find it on your favorite listening platform. You can also watch on YouTube. That concludes our recording, and we'd love to hear from our live audience if you have questions for John or for Elliot and I.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys. We're ditching the surface level relationships, so join us in creating something more human.
We're so happy that you're here, and we always want to go deeper with you. So we created the Something More Society. It's the go-to place to level up your connection, community, and collaboration. We have monthly book clubs, exclusive chat channels, mini episodes and Q&As with Elliot and I, and so much more.
If you're enjoying the show and want to find other ways to support, you can hit follow or subscribe on your favorite listening or viewing platform. Leaving a 5-star review would go a long way, along with a thoughtful review. Thank you so much.
Love you guys.